Ladies, gentlemen, and young ladies, while the world seems to downplay what is happening between Ukraine and Russia, while many believe that this conflict has become an outdated conflict, on the contrary, the worst things are happening right now where we are talking. In Ukraine, the worst things are taking place. The Federation from Russia, as I mentioned to you since a few days ago, the Russian Federation has moved to another level. On this evening of the 8th October 2025, one of the largest repositories, Ukraine's strategic plan, has just been struck, and with a precision strike surgical. A large depot was reduced to ashes, that is to say the flames. The image of the flames, when you see, you can cry, even instead of Ukrainians, so much so that it's scary, it's badass. Yes, again, I can't put these flame images here since, you know very well, the platforms that we use to communicate, to animate our geopolitical conferences have standard rules. That's why I feel uncomfortable not being with you, show the exact images for you to allow us to see the extent of the damage, the magnitude of things. But what is needed to say is that it is very, very serious, and the destruction of this oil depot and will really play deadly on the supplies of Ukrainian troops who are engaged at the front. Ladies, gentlemen, and young ladies, good evening again. Welcome. In this new conference, Geopolitics dedicated to Current Events International. So, as part of this conference, it is from this news that we are going speak. But before continuing, as usually, please do your best to take actions that motivate and distribute the conference around you. If you are new, if this is your first time to come across my conference, please subscribe. This allows you to be up to date, to be regularly informed of the latest news, the hottest news of the moment. World news, of course. So let's go into the depths. It was a targeted strike that paralyzed Ukrainian logistics. And when we're talking about Ukrainian logistics, we refers to anything that allows carry military equipment and all the others. So it is a strategic deposit which was reduced to ashes. This attack has only just begun occur around 8 p.m. GMT. A deposit for a very large oil depot, large capacity in Piriluki. This is in Tyrhive Oblast. This large depot, this oil depot of a very large capacity, was hit by a precision strike, causing a massive fire visible to several kilometers. That is to say, whatever the number of kilometers, you can see these flames. So, official images have been published by Kiev. It is one of the few times that Ukraine agrees to broadcast the images of his bitter defeat. Okay? They released the footage, and no, it's without comment. The Ukrainian authorities have released images and videos of explosions successive and a column of smoke black, which confirms the extent of the sinister. So it's a critical infrastructure, huh? This repository of Priluki is a very well-developed infrastructure. Critical since this deposit supplied the military vehicles. Everything that is a vehicle, everything that is a military vehicle and civilian vehicles from the north of the country were powered by this deposit, as well as a part of the transport connecting Kiev to Kharkiv. So food vehicles from the north of the country, and from whether civilian or military vehicles, whether it is the vehicles that connect Kiev in the capital Kiev, it is this deposit there which is supplied. We are talking about oil depot, a large oil depot that was set on fire, hit and set on fire. So share the video. Do you already see that we, for example, in the Republic of Guinea, we have a large oil depot which had been there inside, which a fire had broken out. But how long did we suffer from this situation? And until then, we continue to suffer from it. I think 2 years later, if I don't do it mistake, more your reason, Ukraine, who is at war. Well, it must also be said that it is a Russia's false response, because that Vladimir Putin had sworn refineries were hit in Russia and it turned into a fire. It almost everything destroyed. Russia had promised to retaliate and that the response was going to be a lesson. But what happened spent this evening of the 8th October in the locality in the Tchiani region, Ukrainians will never forget it. So what else does he mean? It's a strike that is part of the energy strategy from Moscow. And for several weeks, Russia target fuel stocks, refineries and substations electric in order to cut the lines Ukrainians supply before winter. Very well. Since when Ukraine too hits Russian refineries and electric poles, the transformers, Ukraine says it wants to cut the site's supply, which allowed to enrich the war effort of the Russia versus Ukraine. So the Russia also does the same thing, and it is a campaign that is truly calculated since each attack aims to weaken the mobility of the Ukrainian army. If there is no more fuel in the fuel depot, vehicles Ukrainian military will not be able to circulate. So this will weaken the army's mobility Ukrainian. That's the goal displayed. Even if the oil depot is a civil good, but Russia also has his argument now since it is Ukraine who is lending it this argument. So it must be said that, and the other objective is to provoke a internal energy crisis before the cold season. And when the energy crisis will be there, when the cold season will be here, finally the Ukrainians will not even know that to do. They will be obliged, they will be in frustration, they will be forced to be off turn against the leaders, including the team, the management stratum by Vladimir Zelensky. So it's a political signal. It is worth mentioning. By hitting Priluki, Moscow reminds that it can reach the entire Ukrainian territory to any what time, and that it is not by weakness if Moscow also refuses to strike strategic targets such as oil depots. So it must be said that even the areas considered as hinterland secured are struck, because this part, Piril, in the Tierniv area, is really remote. It's towards the north of the country. No one could imagine. And so the immediate consequences on the field is that there is a shortage and logistical chaos. The forces Ukrainians must now reorganize their supplies, while that several northern regions are already experiencing power outages in the north. There is a civil crisis that is parallel, since the local authorities alert on the difficulties of maintaining essential services. Hospitals, transport depend on the same power supply network. So everything is at a standstill for the moment. And so, young ladies and gentlemen, here is the front page of the news. We continue to follow the news of this side. Everything that will unfold in result, we will come back here on the platform for raising awareness to be able to elaborate on this. Thank you therefore to all. I'll get back to you soon on time with new news. It was of course the voice of your humble servant, the Samurai.